Good afternoon. The September 11th, 2023 meeting of the WVU Faculty Senate will please come to order. Due to the fact that our last Faculty Senate meeting was 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and during those 2 weeks, we have prioritized planning for last Wednesday's assembly over everything else. We do not have the August 28 meeting minutes for approval today. They will be prepared ASAP though and posted on the website, and then we will have them for official approval at the October meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the tragic shooting death of Associate Professor Zhu Zheyan at UNC Chapel Hill on August the 28th. The condolences of the WVU faculty were conveyed to the chair of faculty at University of North Carolina, Dr. Beth Morocco, who responded that they were obviously under great stress and trying to cope. So I know you'll join me in continuing to hold them in thought. Last Wednesday, the University Assembly met as petitioned by the faculty and addressed two resolutions, one expressing no confidence in the leadership of President Gee, and one calling for an immediate freeze to academic transformation. A quorum was reached, and the resolutions were addressed in standard order, resulting in a vote of no confidence in the leadership of President E. Gordon Gee of 797 in favor and 100 opposed, and a vote calling for an immediate freeze to academic transformation of 747 in favor and 79 opposed. The vote results were communicated last Thursday, September the 7th, to WVU Board of Governors Chair Tanya Willis Miller, President Gee, and Provost Reed, all of whom have acknowledged receipt. Chair Willis Miller has subsequently transmitted the results to the other members of the Board of Governors, and the faculty have now resoundingly stated their collective positions on these two issues. I'd like to thank all of the senators and committee chairs who volunteered at the Assembly, as well as the Senate leadership team. And if you will all please join me in giving Corey Hunt a large round of applause. He did a tremendous job. As a reminder, the Board of Governors meeting is this week on Thursday and Friday. The meeting will be held at Erickson Alumni Center again. An extended public comment period will be conducted on Thursday beginning at 11:30 a.m. And I don't know if that time is on the agenda. It wasn't a day or two ago. So if there have been questions, please spread the word. I hope that's been corrected by now, but the public comment period begins at 11:30. I've not been given a time for how long that will last, but it will be at least 2 hours minimum. So I think there'll be plenty of time. Again, you can sign up to speak. You received an email from Corey on August the 29th, so that should be somewhere in your inbox, or you can fish it out of your trash. There's a link in there to sign up to speak. There's also a link for comments to be gathered to go to the Board of Governors, and that they are still receiving comments, and I believe will through the end of Wednesday. Thank you to those of you who have volunteered to serve on this year's University P&T advisory panel. We're still in need of additional volunteers, and finding those to serve on this is our responsibility of Senate. So we really need people to step up and serve our fellow faculty members in this way. I'm told that the caseload, or the number of people who will be whose packages will have to be reviewed is growing, and so we actually need a couple more people than we originally thought. So please consider serving or approaching one of your colleagues maybe that hasn't had university level service to serve. And I don't mean to be funny, but this is service to faculty. This is not service to the administration. So please I know there's been reluctance to serve and there are a lot of feelings right now, and I appreciate that, but we're not going to help our fellow faculty members who are going up for tenure and promotion by not filling out this committee with a committee of their peers to review their packages. As a reminder, the Caruth Center will be hosting the Send Silence packing event tomorrow all day on the Woodburn lawn, and this is the event that will focus on youth mental health and ending the silence surrounding suicide. Lastly, our next Senate meeting is scheduled for October the 9th at 3:15 here at the College of Law, and we are now we'll be back on our regular academic year monthly schedule. That concludes my report. Are there any questions for me? Okay, next we have a report from President Gee, who is joining us online.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for joining online. I actually, 4 years ago, I had a hip replaced, my left hip, and now I was informed on Friday, none of it having to do with the angst of the last week, that I have to have my right hip replaced. So they're keeping me at home and homebound as much as they can. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today. I'm just going to go over a couple of things that I really didn't get a chance to say over the past week or during the assembly. But I want to again just say that since my arrival at the university, I have always spoken consistently about three critical missions we must address as a university community. First, we must always put our students first. We must always be fiercely land grant. I believe that that is our calling, and we must always act as one university, not simply an amalgamation of departments or programs connected by a PRT or by a landline. And I've also tried to emphasize over this time that we would focus within our four pillars of education, obviously pre-K through life, healthcare, prosperity. Incredibly important that we grow the opportunities in this state, and of course our whole emphasis on purpose for our students, for our faculty, for our staff. So I can tell you that without a doubt that over the last decade we have done that. So today, what I think I will do is I will focus instead on some of the misrepresentations that have been circulating of late. And there have been a lot of them, and I'm just going to focus on a few of them. Yes, I'm going to say this. Yes, I plead guilty. I had an aspirational system-wide enrollment goal of 40,000. At the time that I came, we were at 33,000 students. However, that aspirational number did not occur, but also it never, ever affected bricks and mortar decision. I'm just going to say that again. A simple fact, we have not made a building or bonding decision based on a theoretical number. We did not say this is what we're going to have. And anyone who says that is just simply false. And keep in mind, despite challenging enrollment trends, West Virginia University has consistently gained market share. One of the few institutions that has gained market share, plus we are gaining ground in retention and graduation rates. In fact, our graduation rates are up 12%, which I think is a real tribute to all of you. Did the pandemic affect our goals? Of course it did. But let me be clear. We did not build budgets. Let me say this again. We did not build budgets around aspirational goals, nor did our debt load increase by 55%. Whoever came up with that figure simply does not understand how bonding works. And so I please ask you to stop citing those two things because they are just simply not true. Another thing to keep in mind, of course, is that the university maintains a AA- rating from Fitch, a AA3 rating from Moody's, and an A rating from Standard & Poor's. In fact, the rating agencies gave us a stable outlook because of two things, because of our university's senior leadership and how we are managing the financial issues we are facing. Now, if you take a look at what is happening around higher education, simply review the rating agencies' assessments of higher education writ large, as well as other institutions. They are far more skeptical of what is happening in universities than they are in our own institution. As to the budget deficit, multiple factors have contributed to it. The pandemic, post-pandemic era enrollment trends that all of higher education is grappling with. Someone mentioned that there's a dramatic increase in terms of the students going into higher education. That's simply not true. It's going exactly the opposite direction. And of course, with a highly elite, of which I've been president of two of them, where parents would kill their first to get their second in, there is a growing trend, but that is not the large public universities. And of course, we've had increasing costs for utilities. We have been in a cycle in which we've had a lot of increasing costs, PEIA, payroll, supplies, and we've been working to address spending challenges for a number of years. Unfortunately, that meant the elimination over the past several years of more than 500 non-academic positions, saving nearly $21 million. The goal was to streamline operations and maximize efficiencies, and we are making progress on both. But we did lose over 500 of our colleagues. Now, let me touch on this rhetoric around academic transformation. First of all, the university began assessing its strengths and areas of concerns back in 2016. In early 2021, actually in 2020, before the current structural budget deficit, we refined the academic transformation process, sharing with the West Virginia University community that what was involved in what we were doing. Yes, I can admit that without any problem that the budget challenges accelerated, but it was not the cause of something that is necessary for West Virginia University and any institution of higher education to undertake, because it is happening everywhere. And also throughout the past 3 years, most of the programs recommended for discontinuance received notice they were not operating at optimum levels. Let me just say that again. Almost every program that was put on watch were told 3 years ago that they were going to be recommended for discontinuance because they were not operating at an optimum level, and they were given, including declining enrollments, and they had multiple opportunities to bring forth viable options for change. Also, the faculty have been involved since 1921, and to say otherwise is false. The faculty involvement has been robust. The final recommendations under consideration will keep our university financially sound and set a stage for future investments in programs that meet future student and societal needs. The notion, and let me just say this again, the notion these recommended changes will bar our students from intellectual exploration is nonsense. Or from a well-rounded liberal arts education is also false. West Virginia University has been and always will be a university that offers a variety of majors and experiences that prepare our students for the future. In fact, at the end of this process, we will offer more than 300 majors. We will be one of the most comprehensive and one of the most complete institutions in the country. In addition, we'll offer study abroad trips, cultural events, internships, and community service programs that open the world to our students. But what we've discovered, we must align our majors with our future careers. It is a necessity for our students in today's world. Just to make this point, I don't know if you've seen this or not. This was from the New York Times yesterday. It says "Not You." This is the New York Times Magazine. It makes the point much better than I can that higher education is in a very very difficult position, and we have to change. Otherwise, we're going to become Blockbuster or we're going to become a buggy whip factory. We simply have to make some of the changes that we're making. And I know all of you care about this university very much. I care about this university very much, and we will have disagreements along the way around how to meet the challenges of the day. And of course, I can accept that. But I will not accept the narrative being promulgated that we have mismanaged this university or we are making it a lesser university. That is absolutely far from the truth. And if anyone can show me the data that supports that, then I will be interested in seeing it. And despite these sensational headlines and proclamations, we are in no way eviscerating, gutting, or dismantling our university. What we are doing is we're setting ourselves on a foundation of the modern land-grant R1 university. And let me just say that again, we will be an R1 university, robustly so, which will lead to improved student success, increased retention, higher graduation rates, and a more robust pipeline for our students. Change is hard. Change is not something that anyone likes. Change is also necessary. And universities, I will just say this again, universities in this country, save for a very few, have an existential crisis in front of them. And I'm glad that we are willing and able to handle that. Saying that, Madam Chair, I'm open for any questions anyone may have, or else if the provost wants to give her report, and then maybe the two of us can answer any questions, that might be helpful.
If you don't mind, President Gee, let's go ahead and open the floor for questions. Any questions for President Gee?
Okay.
I have one. Jennifer Sickle from Eberly College, and I was wondering if I could recognize members from the West Virginia United Student Union, Matthew Kalb, Malin Sadler, and Dante Pulis, to be able to speak.
Yes. One moment, please. We're in a question and answer for President Gee.
Yeah, well, they would like to speak to him, and they haven't had the opportunity to do so yet. They have questions.
Very well. Please head to microphone at the left or the right. Please state your name and your affiliation to WVU.
Hi guys, my name is Malin Sadler. I am a senior here. I am a student studying philosophy, women and gender studies, and political science. Let's see here. I guess my question is, you say we're a student first university, that we are land grant to the max, and that we are a university as one. But I saw a couple days ago, this university came together as one and asked 800 some faculty to ask you to remove yourself. And I'm not saying that that's what you have to do, by no means, but also the shoe fits weird. But my point is, faculty on a certain website have put forth the possible cutting of administrative pay cuts back to 2013 that would completely absolve this budget cut. Now, I've heard from several sources in the university that no one's really looked into this, which is what a crying shame to see over 100 faculty leave when we haven't made a look at this. But that would be my question is, are we looking at any administrative pay cuts? Would you take a pay cut, Dr.
You know, let me just tell you something. I have not had a pay raise in the 10 years that I've been here. Secondly of all, I contribute every year 15% of my salary to student programs. Something that you don't know, and I don't advertise that. I've also am a major donor to the university. I have given a substantial amount of money. A number of our other administrators have done. During the pandemic, there was a decision made that we would not cut any salaries for the teaching faculty. But we did ask our senior administration and our athletic department for all of them to cut their salaries, and they did. And so, frankly, the university administration, however you want to define it, has been very focused on making certain that they are contributors to the issues that we are facing. And by the way, you know, we could cut everyone's. We could have done something. We could have cut everyone's salary, faculty, staff. We could cut everyone across the board 10%. That might have given us enough money to cover some of the deficit. You know, I want to tell you something that I'm concerned about. If you'll give me just a second here, and that is the fact that yes, we are losing some faculty. Yes, we have lost some staff members, but my belief is, and I think that information, and the truth of the matter is the fact that we are going to have 95% of the people at this university are going to be here, and they're going to be in much better shape because they don't have to look to the right and to the left and determine that they may have another financial issue. We are moving from what I would say a threat to a thriving mentality. Sometimes you have to prune in order to plant. And that's exactly what we're doing. So yes, I have contributed every year 15% of my salary. I have donated substantial amounts of money. Many of our administrators have done this. We did take a voluntary pay cut during the pandemic when we didn't ask anyone else to.
During
And so that's the answer.
the pandemic, Dr. Gee? Did you
Pardon?
only for a cut during the
Excuse me,
pandemic?
We have a rule here that one question is asked and then you must yield to the next speaker. So if you'll get in
Oh,
line,
okay.
and did you
Sorry, my
you
bad.
yield to all three? I wasn't sure. Okay.
Great.
You will
Well,
please.
thank you. Thank you anyway. Tell me your name again. I lost her. Okay.
It's Malin Sadler, MAI.
Malin, thank you.
LER.
Appreciate it.
Hello, Dr. Gee.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So, my name is Matthew Kolb. I'm an undergraduate mathematics major, and I'm also the president of the Assembly of Delegates for the Student Union. And if you're not familiar with the Student Union or its Assembly of Delegates, basically, we're the primary decision-making body for the union, and we represent over 350 students. And within the next week to 2 weeks, that will be over 500. So it's growing pretty quickly. Okay. So I have some comments for faculty. And at the end, I'm going to ask Dr. Gee for his thoughts on my comments. So I don't think I really have to go over the history, recent history of everything that's been happening. But what I do know is that students, faculty, alumni, members of the community, everybody has been asking questions. Everybody gave comments. There were petitions that got tens of thousands of signatures. And every time we heard the same response from administration. There have been protests. There was a vote of no confidence in the vote to freeze the transformation from the faculty assembly last week. And that brings us to today. So faculty, for the students, what can you do? This Thursday and Friday, the Board of Governors will be meeting for a public comment.
Excuse me. This is not a time for recruiting to events. So please pose your question to President.
I'm
Gee.
not recruiting for events. I'm making a comment, and at the end, I'm asking Dr. Gee for his opinion on those comments. The Board of Governors will be meeting early in the morning on Thursday and Friday during a time when students will be in class, faculty will be teaching, and people will be away at work. This is no coincidence, I believe, and the union believes that this is purposeful so that they, the administration and the Board of Governors, can continue peddling the narrative that no one cares. They don't want people to show up so they can say, look, we had the public comment, nobody came out, nobody cares. They want to vote without having to vote with the eyes of hundreds of people looking at them. So faculty, what can you do? Thursday and Friday in the morning, cancel all your classes and let your students go. Let them go to the meetings. And then for the faculty specifically, what can you do? You had the vote of no confidence, the vote to freeze the transformation. Obviously, that's not going to do anything. You can organize. Over 700 members of the faculty voted in favor of those resolutions. Alone, you are nothing but individuals with opinions. Together, organized, you can come up with goals, you can work collectively, you can find out what you want, and you can find out how you can get it. You have to do it. The students support you, alumni support you, the community supports you. In order to win what you want, it's not enough to beg at the knees of people who are in power. By organizing, you can take power for yourselves. And the fight isn't over till we give up. So don't give up. Don't give up Thursday. Don't give up Friday. Don't give up. Dr. Gee, how do you feel about my comments to the faculty here today?
Well, let me say two things. One, first of all, that the normal times that the board has always met has been during those times. So that's been for years. So this is not, there is not any conspiratorial notion about the time of the meeting. Secondly of all, I applaud you. I mean, I believe everyone should have a right to speak. I am a robust believer in free speech. One of the challenges we face nationally is that about 65% of our students do not feel like that they really can engage in free speech. About 65% of the faculty in this country don't believe they can engage in free speech. I actually would welcome a forum in which we can actually talk about all of these issues without having people yelled at or shouted down or a variety of other things. So I would encourage you to organize any way you want to, but I would also encourage you to organize in a way that allows everyone to speak their mind and to not have to be put into a position whereby that they are being shunned or put down because of the fact that they have a different view. So that's my opinion, and I appreciate the fact that you'd come through. Tell me your name again.
Matthew.
Matthew, thank you. What's your last name, Matthew?
Kolb.
Kolb?
Kolb, yes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank
Hi.
you. Please continue.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dante Pulis. And I just wanted to reinstate the first thing that Malin said regarding the faculty vote of no confidence. My question essentially is that how can you justify staying in your position whenever the almost entire, I should say, student body and faculty body of this university have no faith in you? How can you continue with you and your administration to ignore the attention that national and international media are covering this story very negatively, as they should? How do you plan on spinning that narrative?
Well, you know something, I've been a university president for 43 years. I've seen almost everything, including these kinds. I had people at the University of Colorado camp out in front of my house for a month about an apartheid issue. I believe in what I'm doing. And I believe that I've been given the responsibility from the people of this state to make this a better university. And I believe that that's exactly what we're doing. We just had a hearing before the Senate and House Finance Committees, in which they heard exactly what we're doing, in which they believe in what we're doing, and which they've applauded us. I have always made that case to our Board of Governors. And I made this case beforehand. I said, let me just tell you something. We're going to go through a rough period. But my belief is, in fact, that most university presidents gain their positions by offending the fewest number of people the longest period of time. I'm one of those guys who, because of my age and because of the fact that this is my final opportunity, I really do believe that I'm doing exactly the right thing, even though people will disagree with me. This is like cod liver oil. Sometimes you just give it no matter what. But I think, and I am certain, that we will prove that we will be a more robust, a more focused, and a better institution at the end of this process. And I just, no one has given me any showing that that is not going to be the case. There have been a lot of misinformation. I've just given you all the misinformation. I can go on down the line about all these things. And by the way, I have written 3 books on this damn issue. And I've always said the same thing all along, and about the fact that we need to change, and we need to do it immediately, or else we're going to become increasingly irrelevant. And almost all of those issues are proving themselves to be true. So I appreciate your point of view. As long as I have the support of the people of this state who believe in our university, and who believe that we can be a better institution, and who believe that we can serve the students of this state in a better way, then I'm going to be fine.
Those people are the people minority in power, though. They're not faculty, body, the students.
I'm talking about 1.8 million West Virginians. We belong to the people of the state. We don't belong to a small, limited number of people. We belong to the people of the state, and they speak through their elected representatives and others. And I believe that we have strong support for the changes that we are making.
We do have person online. I'll let them go and then come back to you, Malin.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Gee. I think I unmuted myself. There we go.
No, Amy, I can hear you actually.
Good. Yes. Great. Dr. Gee, I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments the student made. I'm talking to you from the Czech Republic at the moment on research assignment, but
Yeah, Amy,
the
I remember last week when you were
yeah,
talking to.
yeah, it's been quite well advertised now at this point. But
Mhm.
my point is that even from this great distance, what the students have said ring very true to me in terms of the court of public opinion and the 1.8 million West Virginians putting up some very real resistance to the transformation. And I would say that your response to the students and your response to the faculty senate body as a whole has consistently been to pass the buck, so to speak, and basically say that your data are better than ours or your opinion is more valid than ours. Granted, I have not been a university president before. It's not a job I think I would care to have personally, but it's a very important job, and it's the job that holds the responsibility at the end of the day. And at this point, it seems there is no voice outside of the ones that you have speaking to you at some other forum, rather than, it's the Dominion Post op-eds, it's the DA op-eds, it's the students, it's the faculty in large numbers telling you information that's contrary to your beliefs. And for some reason, we have seen no recognition that that vast a body of opinion could hold some merit or weight. And it's quite frustrating, and it's led a lot of people, I think, to further lose faith and confidence in the direction this university is heading. And I know you have all the confidence in the world that this university is heading, and that's great. But I feel like it's important to have it acknowledged here that that is not widely shared. And I see it as your job to somehow change that, and that just hasn't happened. So I don't know
Well-
what can do, but I think it has to be actions and not words at this point.
Well, first of all, I am doing actions. We're making the changes that I've talked about.
Yeah, but those are the problem. Those are the problem.
And yeah, but that's where the disagreement is. But what I've said today is the fact that there are all sorts of misperceptions about what we're doing. If we had an honest discussion about these issues, and if you had the same information I had, Amy, you would make the same decision I'm making.
Let's do it
And-
then. I feel like that could happen.
And I would be happy when you get back from the Czech Republic. Let's sit down and I'll
Well,
talk
there's
to you.
no barrier, right? We have a big,
Yeah.
broad body here, and I think if
Well,
communication-
Amy, we can talk about. I just talked about certain things. No, we didn't. No, we did not build our budgets around 40,000 students. No, we are not gutting the university. No, we're not eviscerating the liberal arts. On and on and on. And those are absolutely truths, but yet they get demonstrated in different ways. But Amy, I tell you something, we could talk about this all along. I think that there is a chasm here. We have to build trust with each other. Right
Trust is
now,
powerful.
I don't have a lot of confidence that a group of our faculty are being honest with either our students or ourselves. And I think that that's important. I think when they characterize issues the way that they've been characterizing them, then which are just absolutely not true, false, which are absolutely false. And I think that we have an opportunity to talk about those. And I said, I would welcome it anytime. I'll welcome anyone coming up and spending some time with me and showing me where my data are wrong, showing me where what I've said is wrong, showing me that that actually the support of higher education in this country is robust and growing, instead of now down about 30% of the American public not believing in what 30% of the American public, only 30% believing in universities. That, Amy, if we were in a political campaign, we would be dead. And that's the point I'm making. So I think that I welcome everyone's opinions. In fact, well, what I just said is the fact that I'm a strong believer in the First Amendment, but I also believe that opinions should be expressed in a way that is civil, that is full of opportunity for people to respond, and is not full of misinformation. And I've just decided to call that out. I just think that is wrong. I think that is not worthy of a university, because our faculty, of all the people in the world, our faculty should be trained to deal with facts and not fiction. So I welcome you to come back and we'll have a chance to chat.
We have more questions, President Gee?
Frankie, did you say you have another question for me?
We have one more question that I've promised Malin, and we have a faculty member with a hand raised online. It's Malin's turn to ask her second question.
Malin. There you are.
Long time no see. What's up? Let's see here. What was I? 800 some of this faculty misinformed. So my question comes from the idea of one of the value sections in the WVU values faculty contracts. My question is specifically the clause of respect the decisions that have been made in the best interest of the university. My question is, can you define respect a little bit more, and then what the results would be in failure to do so?
Well, I think that Stephanie Taylor, our lawyer, answered that last time and has answered it a number of times. I think that again is one of those robust misperceptions and even characterizations that are not true. What you're doing very often is you're developing characterizations that then take a life of their own. I don't know if Stephanie is there, but if she is, I'm certain she would welcome an opportunity to talk to you about that issue. If not, I'll have her give you a call, okay?
Oh, later.
Well, I understand you're going to come up a little later. Perhaps you could address it then. Does that work? Okay. Great. And we recognize Douglas Terry online.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Douglas Terry. I'm an English professor in Beckley, and my question is for Dr. Gee, and I like how you've been like talking about kind of acknowledging the way in which this is being represented in the national press, and there does seem to be a big gap in the rhetoric that the press is using as it writes about it, and then the things that people here at the university are saying, the administration, and I think that for me personally, like one of the things that I'm kind of missing is, and it all seems to kind of like stem around the elimination or the mostly elimination of the world language program. And one of the things that the questions that I have is that you've said that still there will be a robust liberal arts education. And I'm just kind of wondering how does the eliminating the world language program and limiting the offerings to Spanish and Chinese align with a kind of robust liberal arts education for the 21st century, where communication among cultures is important. And one of the things that kind of makes me worry about that is, one, the way that it makes West Virginia look as perhaps more insular, and that maybe it actually, my fear is that it would result in West Virginia kind of being more insular, maybe less appearing like it less wants to engage with the rest of the world. And so I'm wondering that piece that I'm missing of like how the elimination of that program will then kind of still allow us to have this robust liberal arts education. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that, because I think that it's a piece that's missing.
Yeah, well, and by the way, I appreciate your question. I do. In fact, I think you made my point for me. And that is, we're in a modern country. We have many modern ways now to teach foreign languages and to teach and to engage in culture. There's not just one way to salvation. There's a number of ways to salvation, and that's exactly what we are doing and what we're going to explore. I think also that we have to be very clear about it. Our language program just did not perform. There are 24 faculty members. There are 23 now. They were teaching 21 majors. They had 55 double majors. They had a student faculty ratio better than the Department of Surgery. And on top of it, they said, well, we're making $800,000. That is false from the very start, because what they are doing is they're counting student hours. That is not that's someone else's money, probably more than anyone else. And by the way, of the R1 institutions in this country, the land grant R1 institutions, we were in the very bottom. We were second from the bottom in terms of language training, and in terms of programs that were, or in terms of degrees granted. If you're in my shoes and you see that data, you would do the same thing, which is you would question whether or not that was being taught in the right way. I'm not saying eliminate it. I'm proficient in 2 languages. I believe in the liberal arts education, but I don't believe in one that is not producing and not meeting the needs of our students. And that's what we're about. And we are a very modern institution. So Frankie, I think I've answered enough questions, but Doug, anytime you want to ask me that question again, after we take a look at some of the ways we're doing it, I would appreciate it. Okay.
President Gee, we do have 2 faculty waiting to ask questions. Are you declining to answer those at this time?
Oh, no, I'll answer anything.
Okay.
I'll answer anything. I just thought that was the last question you'd indicated to me. Okay.
Rise.
Hi, everyone. This is Ella Chelikbash from the School of Mathematical and Data Sciences, representing and my representing the math faculty here. I have some questions about the discontinuation of our math graduate programs at WVU for you, Dr. Gee, if you mind. If you don't mind, I will be reading some comments, some conclusions that we made all together as a math faculty. What was previously a preliminary recommendation has become the policy of the provost and will be enforced unless the Board of Governors steps in. While discontinuance of the PhD program, mathematics PhD program, which is the only PhD program in the state, as we know, in mathematics, and reducing staff levels to 32 of the 48 listed in the publicly shared data file sound dramatic enough. The details and likely consequences are grim, and it will be like a nuclear annihilation of the math department. All graduate degree programs in SMDS in the School of Mathematical and Data Sciences will close for the foreseeable future. There have been verbal, generic, and non-binding promises of a teach-out plan. There's a plan to develop a new graduate program, which is greatly appreciated, but there's no timeline as provided for us for the development, approval, and launch of the new program. And it is only specifying applied math and data science, which we know that in our unit, in including our data science faculty, in order to be successful as an R1 school, a theoretical mathematics research is a must. And in data science, in machine learning, and engineering, and you must have received the STEM faculty letters supporting the continuance of our current graduate programs. So we know that theoretical mathematics is a must in an R1 school, and we will be the only R1 university without any graduate math programs. So keeping that in mind, the details of the teach-out are unclear without a policy or commitment regarding the eligibility of students, time allowance for the process. A PhD normally takes 5 years in mathematics or even longer. Language in the final decision implies a only 2-year teach-out period. Continuity of current graduate student support these are all unclear in the details that we receive. And secondly, personal cuts will likely increase class sizes to 60 to 80, and ensuing exodus may destroy all academic mathematics programs within 1 to 2 years. Because losing 20 math faculty will leave us only with 32 math faculty, and it is kind of impossible to cover all math courses with only 32 faculty, and we want some answers. How did you come up with 32, that number? Where did that come from? So we
yeah, can you let me respond? I mean, I love your passion and I appreciate it. And I have equal passion, which is the fact that we're going to try to meet those needs. But let me just say something. Our math, and then I certainly wouldn't allow the provost, which I think it really is in her purview to answer that directly, or Mark Gavin if he's there. But let me just say that our math faculty, first of all, did not appeal the loss of a PhD program. No, they didn't. They did not.
Oh.
And
So have our appeal document. It is posted on our website. We did.
Yeah, all I know is the fact of what I've been told, and I think that we can ask the provost. Now, the second thing is, let me just say that what I really liked about what the math faculty were proposing is the fact that they said let's move to a more modern approach, something in which we can be very competitive. And that is in the data science area, national security, data science, other areas that will support what we're trying to do overall at the institution in the one university model. Now, saying that as to exactly why that appeal went the way that it did, I'm not certain that I have the answer, but I do know that I was very encouraged by the fact that the faculty came up with a very thoughtful approach to how we're going to deal with the issues of mathematics in the future. And let me just say something to you, because I've said this every since I've been a university president. Mathematics is essential to the sciences, and English is essential to the humanities. Those are two fundamental beliefs that I have. But saying all of that, I don't believe that every aspect of math is essential, and I don't believe that every aspect of English is essential. I think that we as an institution need to make some choices as to where we can best use our assets and be very, very thoughtful about that. So if the provost is there, I'm certain maybe when she responds, she can respond to the 32 number, okay?
We have teacher shortage in this state.
We do.
We do. That in this state, we don't need math teachers because our graduates are everywhere in the state of West Virginia. And this is our land grant mission to educate teachers for the state. So if we do not have these teachers, Fairmont State, Marshall, all these colleges are full with our graduates, math graduates. So what you're saying is that theoretical mathematics is needed to educate teachers. So what you're saying is that we only need data science. And have you ever spoken to our data science faculty? Because you might be surprised about the answers you will be getting.
Look, let me just say that this is not a time to have all of that debate. But what I will say is the fact that I think that we're constantly looking at how we can best provide stronger mathematics education in the state. That has been one of our callings and one of the things that we really do believe in. And as I said, mathematics is critical to our sciences, but it doesn't mean that we need to do it the way that everyone else does it. And it doesn't mean that we need to always have the same notion. What we're doing here, this is really the fundamental battle that we have. There are those who believe that the university should remain the same. It can't. We, just by the very essence of what we're doing, we cannot remain the same. We can't keep every program. We can't do everything that we've been doing because we've lived beyond our means. And now we're making some choices so that we can then invest. And the investment side of this issue is so immensely important. We are going to invest in the future of this institution. And we're going to do it in a way that makes absolute sense. But that doesn't mean that we can continue to do everything we're doing. If we look through the rear view mirror, instead of looking through the windshield, we're going to have a lot of trouble. Change is hard. This I understand, and I've listened very carefully to all of these issues. I talked with the provost and her team about it. But as to the particular question, there was an appeals process. I was encouraged by the fact that that appeals process did come up with some other approaches. And so if you want to talk with the provost office about that, you can. But that is That is the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is math is critical, but not every aspect of mathematics in this state at this university is critical. So there we go.
Last question from faculty.
All righty. Hey, everybody, Dan Totske, Eberly College. So my question is about our R1 status. I looking at the camera now. So with our R1 status, we've heard to different degrees, it's fine, right? That we're okay, we'll still be R1, et cetera. I'm an evidence-based girl living in an evidence-based world, and we haven't really seen that outlined exactly how. And so I think it would be very helpful. Maybe now is not the exact forum for that, or in a different person's remarks, or on the transformation website, whatever it might be. It would be very helpful to sort of outline, here's what you need to be R1, and here's how we're going to be that after faculty are laid off and we lose PhD programs and et cetera. Because to this point, it's just sort of been, yeah, we're fine. But I guess.
Well, Dan, we actually have the data on that. And I think that Fred King, our Vice President of Research, has a very, very clear presentation on how that this will have no impact whatsoever. And in fact, I would contend, and I'm not just being, I'm just not being Pollyannish. I contend that by being more focused, we will grow our research capabilities and our R1 status much beyond where we are right now. And by the way, from 2016, when we barely inched into it. And then in 2022, when it was reaffirmed, we were in a very strong shape. And I believe that when we see what is happening, what will happen over the next few years will be even much better. I think that we can grow our research from about $241 million to a half a billion dollars. That should be easy if we make some of the changes we're making right now. And that in and of itself, I think, should be very encouraging too. But Fred King can give you those data. And in fact, I'm certain he'll be cheerfully do so. So I'm going to write him a note right now and ask him to make certain that we all have access to that data, but certainly that you do, Dan, okay?
That'd be helpful, especially since if the recommendations, and especially post-appeal recommendations, are going to be taken, because I think that presentation was from prior to those being released. So having sort of an update that if this goes through, following the Board of Governors meeting, what that actually looks like, rather than it probably is fine.
Yeah, and he has done that post-mortem. And by the way, Dan, let me just say this, that the board has not yet spoken. We are talking about a meeting that will come up in Thursday and Friday, and the board has not yet spoken. And so we are talking in some theory, but we did take a look at the R1 issues based upon some postmortem calculations. So Frankie, something, I love a good debate. And I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, President Gee. Appreciate you answering all the questions. And I will say to the senator, we will put that on our list as well to follow up on and get that posted on the Senate budget side as well. There is I'm pretty sure there's already a link there that a presentation that was done about what it takes to be R1 and some data on that as well. I think that's already on there. We're checking the answers. Yes, but we'll work on this other piece as well. Thank you. All right, our next report is from Provost Reed.
Thank you, Frankie, and good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, I just want to say that Fred King wrote an editorial for the Associated Press, which came out today, and that will be shared on the e-news tomorrow. So I'm sure you guys can find it. But he talks very clearly about the impacts of this on R1, and I'm sure he would be more than willing to come and talk to Senate. So for my report today, I do not have any additional information beyond what we have shared around academic transformation. However, I have asked to come up and provide some additional information. Paul Kreider, who's going to, Vice Provost Paul Kreider, who is going to talk about the appeals process and how that led to the recommendations that will be presented to the Board of Governors on Friday. I will also ask Stephanie Taylor and Tracy Morris from my office to talk about potential next steps regarding personnel decisions. And then Melissa Latimer is just going to come up and provide a brief update about the placement provider that the university has just hired. So I'm going to ask Paul to come up first, and then we'll take questions after.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Marianne. So as you know, the appeals process is outlined in Board of Governors Rule 2.2, and the committee is structured according to the rule. So there are two constant members on the appeals committee. That's the vice provost as the chair, that's myself, and associate provost for curriculum and assessment, and that is Lou Slimak, who is the program review officer. There is either the associate provost for undergraduate education or the associate provost for graduate education. There is a member from the faculty senate, and there's a member from the dean's staff of the appealing college, and then two members of dean's staffs from two other colleges. So basically, in our appeals process, the faculty senate members who are senate leaders were Scott Wayne and Diana Davis. They served according to their teaching schedules and they alternated days. The associate provost for undergraduate ed and graduate ed, Evan Witters or Richard Thomas, alternated based upon whether undergraduate education or graduate programs were part of the appeal. The two dean's representatives from other colleges were chosen based upon knowledge and interactions with the areas appealing and also knowledge with online programs as applicable. I have to say that all participants took the process very seriously and very professionally. The vast majority of the appeals were very well prepared and very well presented. I'd like to report that some units did an excellent job of telling the story of the program or unit beyond the data used in the preliminary recommendations, and some also presented detailed staffing plans that spoke to modified course reductions, course rotations, modified course loads, and reductions in the credits for degree and other efficiency measures. So as far as from some statistical details from the hearings, we had 19 of 25 academic units deliver appeals, and some units delivered more than one appeal. There were 117 appealable actions. Of those, 66 were not appealed. 51 actions were appealed. A unit could appeal a program discontinuance or the reduction of the number of faculty or both. Of those 51 appealed actions, there were 30 appeals granted in part or in whole. And conversely, there were 21 appeals that were not granted. So after the appeal process, the number of recommended discontinued academic programs was reduced by the count of 5. The estimated impact on faculty positions decreased by 22 positions. The total faculty reduction is estimated at 147 positions from the previously recommended 169. So the total number of 147 faculty positions is 6% of the faculty total of 2,443, which is the number we are required to report to the Higher Education Policy Commission. That concludes my report. We can answer questions a little later.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. So first of all, I did want to go ahead and address the First Amendment question that was asked by one of the students earlier. As I said at our meeting, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did want to provide, I'll go ahead and just sort of say similar to what I said before. There had been some incorrect and inappropriate statements about the notice of reappointment letters in the WVU Code of Conduct. We have seen the focus on two partial clauses, one of which I think was read by the student, from our WVU Code of Conduct that they claim may undermine some free speech rights under the First Amendment. So as I noted before, our notice of reappointment letters referencing the West Virginia Code of Conduct, which again have been in the letter since 2020, indicate that all employees are expected being the key word there, to comply with the WVU values and code of conduct. Additionally, at the introduction of our code of conduct, there's a very lengthy preamble that explains its purpose. But of note, it says WVU promotes freedom of expression and open communications. The university supports and encourages everyone to express their thoughts and concerns in a respectful manner. On the specific clause that was referenced earlier, it is accept and encourage change that is for the greater good. That's part of a bullet listed under our curiosity value, which provides examples on how individuals can choose to exercise that value. These partial clauses are not mandates or requirements. So any statement that they are, that's not accurate. The relevant language in both the notice of reappointment letters and our code of conduct are that these are WVU's expectations, not requirements. We specifically use the word expects or expected because an expectation is not a requirement. It doesn't violate the First Amendment to encourage individuals to behave civilly when they are speaking. Additionally, to the extent that anyone is concerned that WVU would use these partial clauses of expectations to punish employees who express ideas which the university leadership may disagree with, that is not true. To be clear, WVU has never used this language as a basis for disciplining an employee. And as I indicated during our last session together, a cursory review of any interviews or social media or anything out there will indicate that WVU employees have zero problem speaking their minds on social media or otherwise. Okay, so put that aside and I'll turn to what I was going to talk to you about today. So Corey, how do I pull up my presentation? Already up here? I'm sorry, Frankie, I'm not very good, so I'll let you help me out.
I think it's Alt Tab. Alt something.
Oh, I just hit share screen? Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Apologize for that. All right. Okay. All right. So Tracy and I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes of talking through what the reduction in force and non-renewal process would look like if the Board of Governors votes on Friday to approve some of the final recommendations that have been put forth. So if the Board of Governors does approve a final recommendation that involves a faculty reduction or a program discontinuation, the Provost Office, in consultation with the Dean and the Chair, will create what's called a reduction in force plan. This is all detailed in Board of Governors Rule 4.7, and that plan will determine which faculty will be selected to remain and which will be subject to a reduction in force or receive notification that their contracts are ending. That's based upon different faculty types. This group will also review the staff positions within the units for any potential elimination. This is separate and apart from the recommendations that were made through the academic transformation process. But as a result of any of the reductions in academic transformation, we'll also look at the staff positions in those affected units. The finalized RIF plan will be presented to the University RIF Committee for review and approval. And in accordance with Rule 4.7, the RIF Committee does include representatives from the Provost Office, Strategic Initiatives, Employer Relations, and with the advice and consent of the General Counsel's Office. Now, I do want to note for the group that if a dean has opted to meet the reductions solely through non-renewal of teaching track, service track, research track, lecturer, or visiting faculty positions, whose contracts end on or around May 9th, a RIF plan does not have to be created or approved. The non-renewal of those non-tenure track faculty is through our existing contract review process and does occur on an annual basis. So I'm going to walk through the timeline process here so you understand what potentially could be coming up in the next essentially month. So during the week of September 18th, there will be a memo that will be provided to the faculty in the affected units that have a final recommendation approved by our Board of Governors for reduction or discontinuation. You will get that memo from the dean or chair in your particular unit or department. That memo will detail a lot of the information that we're going to cover today, but and a variety of more information. So it's kind of written almost as in like our FAQs that we put out with a lot of different information available to you all to read and to process. As I just mentioned before, the one thing is, if a dean is only doing non-renewals, we will actually start letting them provide the notification to those particular faculty members the week of September 18th, as opposed to doing the full RIF plan, which would involve, tenure track, et cetera, faculty. Tracy is going to talk a lot more about our affirmation forms, but one of the things that folks will get on September 18th is this affirmation form, and that the faculty have to complete and return. It's essentially an opt-in, opt-out form for the RIF. So if you do not want to continue to stay at the university and fulfill the obligations of the university, that's fine. You can, return the form in the negative. Or if somebody doesn't return the form at all, they'll be automatically RIFed or non-renewed and still eligible for the severance package. During the week of October 1st through the 15th, the RIF plans will be reviewed and finalized by the University RIF Committee. Okay, so I say this by October 16th because we're going to try to aim to do this earlier in time. But some units with smaller reduction requirements, they may schedule individualized meetings with faculty and staff whose position will be eliminated during a 1 or 2 day span on or before October 16th. And I recognize that this is not ideal, but it may not be possible to schedule individualized meetings with all faculty and staff whose positions have been eliminated. So regardless of whether you have an individualized meeting and all, you will definitively know one way or another by 5 o'clock on October 16th. If we can't get to you through an individualized meeting, you will get an email that indicates the results of the RIF plan. And again, I just want to emphasize, this is not our preferred way, but we are balancing providing people notice as quickly as we can in this particular aspect. If your position is eliminated, you would get an email with the formal notification, a severance agreement where applicable, information on how to set up an individualized meeting with one of our human resources professionals to discuss benefits, the severance agreement, other types of matters. You have an opportunity to sign up for a due process hearing if you're a tenured faculty member, classified staff, or a teaching track or service track faculty on a multi-year contract. And then there'll also be some FAQs attached. And then if your position is not eliminated, you will receive a notification of that. And then your chairs or deans will follow up with you on any additional information from there. Due process hearings will be held the week of October 23rd. And the results of those will be provided on October 13th, or I'm sorry, October 30th. The due process hearing is an opportunity that if you are, like for example, the class of faculty that have that additional property right, you have an opportunity to go before a representative of the provost's office and the dean's office and explain why you should not be subject to a reduction in force and have that particular hearing. And then December 1st will be the last date to sign and return the severance agreements. So everybody has to get a minimum of 45 days to review the severance agreement. Some people will have longer than 45 days, but 45 days from October 16th, kind of our cutoff date there, is December 1st. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to talk a little bit more here.
Okay, as Stephanie mentioned, on September 18th, you will receive a memo. Faculty in units that have faculty reductions will receive a memo outlining this process. And later, separately, you will receive another email with a link to this affirmation form. This is the form in which you will let us know that you wish to be considered for remaining as a faculty member at WVU, whether on an ongoing basis or for the teach out portion. We will have some units where a limited number of faculty will remain for a certain period of time during the teach out. So on that form, we will disclose if there was any substantive change to your workload distribution. So in the case of a unit where the PhD program may be discontinued, if that would trigger a change to the teaching load for that unit, we will mention that, such as going from a 2-2 to to a 3-3 load, that'll be on that form. And if you do not set the, you need to submit that form. If the form is not returned, you will get some, we will send out a reminder, but if the form is not returned, then you would be automatically placed in the reduction group. We've had a number of people ask questions about retirement and whether or not that they could, if they retired and let us know they were going to retire, if that would count toward the reduction of the positions that have been recommended for their unit. And that answer is in most cases, yes. So as long as you let us know by September 30th that you are planning to retire at the end of the academic year. We also have some individuals who are in phased retirement agreements that we've already let the units know are counting towards their reduction. But if you're interested in retiring or resigning from the university for any other purpose by September 30th, and we can count that into the reductions for your unit, just let your chair know and they will let us know. Some people have asked specific questions about the date. Basically, the date at which you're going off payroll here, May 9th for 9-month faculty, June 30th for our 12-month faculty. There are some issues with escrowing of retirement benefits. We'll work through that with you. So this date may be slightly different. Some people, their retirement date might be listed as August 10th. With respect to how specific individuals will be identified who are subject to reduction in force, if more people return an affirmation form, then the number of positions that are to be retained in that unit, we walk through the procedure that is outlined under 4.7. So as we've mentioned in previous meetings, 4.7, the reduction in force provision under Board of Governors states that we are to consider these 3 factors. Performance, in this case, performance, we are looking at 3 years worth of faculty evaluation ratings. So your ratings and digital measures, those come from your faculty evaluation committees and your department chairs. Knowledge and qualifications, this is including information on any specialized credentials. We've asked the deans, and often they're working with their chairs to provide any specific information. For instance, if you have an accrediting body that requires a faculty member have a specific credential or specific course be taught, they're the only one that has that background. They're letting us know about that. Seniority is is also referred to as longevity in our system. So for most individuals, that corresponds to the exact number of years you've worked at the university. However, if you have dropped below 100% time and you've fallen below the criterion to qualify for the annual increment at some point, taken a voluntary leave, then that slightly alters your annual increment and your number of years of service.
I think that is all for us, and I'll stop sharing, and I think Melissa is up next.
Hello, just a couple of quick updates for you. Last time I was here, I was talking about we are in process of trying to hire a new counselor for FSAP. We have secured that other counselor, so that's great news. She should be starting fairly soon. So that will be more resources available to our faculty and staff as well as their families. Last time I was here, we were talking about we were on the cusp of signing a contract. We did sign a contract. I can now tell you who that agency is. They're called Career Minds. It's all one word, Career Minds. They're a global virtual outplacement company, and they began in 2008. And their main purpose in terms of developing is transition programs that reduce employee stress, right? So that's how they've designed it. And they've also designed it with everybody, regardless of where they are, getting at a minimum some pretty extensive coaching and support. So just to give you just a little bit more information in terms of how this would work. So it's my understanding is that once we get the list of faculty and staff who are affected, we will then send this information to Career Minds so that they will have your name and the email address, and they will reach out to our faculty and staff within 24 hours. They will send a welcome email and text about the services, and then they'll start the individual orientation and assessment process. There will be more information coming. We just had our first onboarding session this morning, and we're just trying to learn more about all the services and how they work. So I'll be able to provide a more detailed information later on.
Hello again, everyone. I'm just going to say a few words. I know you've just had a lot of information shared with you, and it's very serious and very difficult. But I am going to say a few words. I speak from the heart, but I do read from a script. So forgive me if I read what I want to say to you all, but I do feel compelled to say a few things. First of all, I want to acknowledge again that this is a very difficult time for our campus and that many of you are angry, frustrated, and fearful. We certainly saw that last week at the faculty assembly. I don't want to in any way minimize that there was a sizable turnout at that event. I will say that the final vote represents 30% approximately of all of our faculty. That does not mean there were other faculty that wouldn't have spoken in either direction, but I did want to clarify that, particularly for the student who spoke earlier. The fact that I was not allowed to speak, of course, my feelings were hurt, right? I'm a human being, but I will say that I don't take it personally. I know that emotions are high, and I know that the work that we have been asked to do is of great concern to our faculty. I just want to remind everyone that we have been asked to take on this work by the Board of Governors to right-size our university and to position us for a more sustainable future. But in doing so, we are making decisions at a speed that is atypical for higher education and that will impact good people that we know and care about, as well as their families and our community. Please know that once we complete this work, my full focus and the focus of my team will be on working to support faculty and staff who may be leaving the university, and you heard a little bit about our outplacement provider, students who will need to be taught out or offered alternative options to complete their degree programs, and that is a relatively small number of students now after the appeals process, as well as faculty and staff who will remain here and who will continue to contribute to the important work of the university, the teaching and advising that enable our students to succeed, the research that has helped the university achieve and maintain its R1 status, and the community outreach that is absolutely core to our land grant mission. We need to be in a better position to provide the resources that faculty need to be successful. And right now, we do not have those resources, nor do our colleges. While we may be at an impasse now, please know that we value and we appreciate all of you. And I do hope that we can find common ground in the future so that we can strengthen the university that we love for ourselves and for future students and faculty in years to come. Thank you, and we will take questions.
Questions for the provost and her team?
Okay, I have a question. I think this is for the provost. So I'm Matt Valenti. I'm in the Lane Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering. Our department has been flagged for downsizing, and there's some great uncertainty as to the magnitude of the downsizing. So we think it could be anywhere from 1 position to 7 positions. And I was wondering if you could help clarify a point. So I used to be a department chair, so I have an understanding of how department finances work. I also used to be on the Board of Governors, so I also know how the university financing worked at the time. Faculty positions can be funded kind of two ways. There are so-called centrally funded positions, of which we have 29 centrally funded positions. The remainder of our positions, which the university thinks is 35, are funded through department discretionary funding sources. So this is foundation, research overhead, a share of college tuition, and online learning, and summer school. So my question is, the recommendation for our department, I'm using my department as an example. There may be other departments in a similar situation that may have the same question. The recommendation for our department was to reduce the number of faculty from its current level to 28. Did not say what the current level is. We go to, there's a spreadsheet that the university put out, which is where that source of 169 is, which is now apparently 147. You look there for our department, it has the number 7 positions. So 29 versus minus 28 would be 1 position if it's just centrally funded, but if it's all positions, then it could be as many as 7. So I think the question I'm trying to ask is the reduction just in the number of centrally funded lines? In our case, it was 1, or is it all positions, which in our case could be 6 or 7?
So I think I'm going to ask Mark Galvin to come up. Mark oversaw the program portfolio review process and can speak to that very specifically.
So Matt, thanks for the question. The numbers I have, and I know the final recommendation in the letter had you reducing to 28. That does pertain to centrally funded positions, at least in part or in whole. The number we have reducing by would be 7. So we had you on the roster at the time, that unit at 35. Now it's easier to focus on what we're asking to reduce to rather than from, because the from is defined at a certain point in time. As we know with HR rosters, and Tracy can talk quite extensively about this, is they're changing constantly. So we pulled the roster size for centrally funded positions in part or whole as of July 1st, 2023 as the defining starting point. So using that number of 35, we're asking for a reduction of 7 positions to get to 28. And that will be similar for any other unit that had a final number. We looked at a July 1 starting point for partly or wholly centrally funded positions and then took the reductions from there.
So I guess you think that we have 35. I think the difference maybe could be we have some unfilled positions. Maybe that might count for the difference.
I'd have to go back and look
35
at the
and
roster
29.
specifically, but I'm not sure that unfilled positions would be there. But again, we want to really focus on what we're asking to get to, because again, that starting point can become a little confusing, but it is centrally funded positions as defined and on your roster as of July 1st, 2023. Tracy, do you want to add to that?
I just want to add in, because of retirement and resignations that are already counting towards that, all of the deans receive the exact rosters that correspond to the numbers that we're using, and they can clarify for you which specific faculty we're talking about.
Hi, Rose Casey, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. I have a kind of 2-part question about the affirmation document. I appreciated the kind of additional detail that we received from Tracy Morris. Am I correct that because we had it introduced and then we had further slides later, am I correct that the affirmation document is basically asking us to sign to agree to the changed terms of our contract? Because the title is just a little confusing. So in terms of affirmation, I just wanted to check what that means.
You're affirming whether you want to be in the RIF pool or not. And the other thing would be you're affirming what your workload would be if there is a change in workload in your unit.
Okay, thank you. And then the follow-up question is, there was the observation that correctly that people with tenure have a property right in their employment and therefore are entitled to due process to if that tenure is to be taken away. We all know that tenure has been weakened across the country of late. I'm not saying anything about at WVU, just in general, we know that tenure is less strong than it once had been. But legally, it's true that everyone who has tenure has a property right in their employment, and that is protected by the 14th Amendment. So my question then has to do with people who would opt to retire early to save jobs for other people in their department. I know that lots of people in English are considering essentially, or are going to essentially fall on the sword so that younger faculty members don't have to don't have to be riffed and lose their jobs. The people who are looking to retire, most of them are actually, I think all of them are doing so earlier than they want to, and they're doing it for the greater good. So my question is, can you confirm, is it correct that if people are choosing to retire for the greater good by September 30th, that they are then effectively foregoing their right to due process that they have because they are tenured professors, that they are choosing to do away with due process and to give up their tenured position and the right to a full hearing as to the process that's being undertaken?
So you've conflated a bunch of different concepts into one thing, but what I'll answer is
It was a little snarky, but okay.
back at you, Rose.
No, I mean,
But I mean, anyway,
I wasn't being snarky until you were snarky to me. I just expressed some opinions or some data that apparently you thought were incorrect and was snarky with me about it. And I don't appreciate that, quite frankly.
okay. So what I'll say is if somebody chooses to retire, that's a voluntary decision that they make or don't make. And so so there is no due process associated with retirement. That is a decision that you make if you choose to opt or not. If you are a tenured faculty member, for example, and you are subject to a reduction in force, then that's when those due process parameters kick in. The other thing I'll add for that is in our information that we've put out before, but I'll reemphasize it, is that if you choose to retire by September 3rd, choose to put in your notification to retire by September 30th, you would still be eligible for the severance package for those people. So just wanted to make note of that.
So just to be super clear, if people are choosing to retire for the greater good and they're putting in the notice before September 30th, then effectively they're giving up their tenure and therefore their property right that they hold in tenure.
Yes, because they are resigning their employment from the university.
Thank you.
Hi, Ella Chelikbash from the School of Mathematical and Data Sciences again. So I have a question. I will repeat my question about the numbers for the math unit. The media reports 16 cuts for the whole School of Mathematical and Data Sciences, but the target position count of 32 applies to total faculty in the School of Mathematical and Data Sciences. This was 48 1 year ago. But with 4 new hires and 2 postdoc positions, it stood at 54 in fall 2023. If this number is correct, we are looking at a cut of 22 positions, of which 20 permanent faculty, either open-ended, tenured or tenure track, or under long-term contracts with expectations of renewal teaching track. So I'm wondering how, again, that is this number correct? Are we going to lose 20 or 22? Can you clarify this number? And if that happens, how can you guarantee the quality of our undergrad magic education by not increasing the class sizes with the help that we will be getting? Because we will not have TAs, GTAs will be gone. We will not have the tutoring support for all students. I don't know. So I want some answers for this question. Thank you.
I just want to address the number question.
So the number
Yeah,
question is,
I know it is 16. So
16.
based on the roster that we provided to the dean and from the number that we were starting with, it will be 16.
16, so not 20.
Okay, so we did confirm that it's 16, and the second part of your question is related to how you can deliver on.
Yeah, I remember you had some comments at the SGA meeting that our undergrad math education had some issues. And so by cutting the graduate math programs, we'll make it better for undergraduate math education. I don't know the correlation between that, but anyway, so if that's the case, how are you going to make sure our undergraduate math education will stay successful by losing that many faculty and not increasing the class sizes of our math courses? Thank you.
So I think the one thing that I can say is, because I think part of the question is how do we land on that final number? And the answer is we'll work with Eberly College leadership to understand how many sections needed to be covered and how the faculty that remain after the reduction could be deployed across all those sections. And we think in working with Eberly, we came up with the right number. If we didn't, we'll continue to work with the Eberly office to make sure that we make any kind of corrections that are needed, but we do believe that those sections can be covered with those numbers.
Dan? Excuse me, you have not been recognized by a senator.
Dan
Dan?
Totsky, Eberly College, a recognized student.
Very well.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask why the School of Design and Community Development wasn't allowed to appeal the move to the CAC. And along with that, why was student support discouraged?
So organizational structures within the university are not the purview of the Board of Governors and therefore not subject to this process and therefore not appealable. So that's a quick answer to your question. So that's why it was not allowed to appeal on the potential movement of those faculty from the Davis College to the new college. I think, does that answer that part of the question? There's a second part to your question?
Yeah, student support was being discouraged regarding this.
Student support is being discouraged. I'm not sure what that means.
There were slides presented and they were made to take down slides regarding this appeal.
So if you're referring to information that came to the appeals committee, the committee had loads of information that they reviewed. Some of that was not presented in the appeals process. But again, if student support for these reorganizational changes was not part of the appeal process.
Thank you.
All right, Dan Totsky, Eberly College. Just say kind of weird to double down on the social media thing again, but don't forget to like and subscribe. But my question is about the appeal to the results of the appeal process. Was it looked like some units were told, sort of conditioned, their appeal was approved on the condition that they increase enrollment. And specifically, since so many of these decisions are based on enrollment, I was wondering, why wasn't that more common? Was it just a matter of if that was proposed? Because I believe that was proposed across many of the appeals, that there were plans in place to increase enrollment. But if that's the problem, why were we not given the chance to increase enrollment rather than just saying enrollment's down, them's the breaks?
So I can't recall specifically the answer to your question, but I can say a couple of general comments. Robin Shannon from the Provost Office was present at all the hearings, and she took copious notes, and we can go back and review any notes that we need to answer a question. More often than not, what would happen through the appeal process is that the unit and the person who's appealing would make a recommendation to do X, Y, or Z, and we would then include it in the notes of action later on in the letter.
So I would then assume then the takeaway is if there was a plan to increase enrollment in an appeal, that would be in the notes. And then we could line that up to those who were told they could increase enrollment, or, because I think the point I was trying to make was not everybody was given the chance to survive contingent on enrollment increases. And my question was, why not everybody?
I can't answer it without going into the notes. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it would probably be in the notes if people said they would increase enrollment, and then we could determine whether that was denied or taken.
So I'm not sure I can speak to every example that you have in mind, but one that immediately jumps to the forefront for me is landscape architecture. So that is one that at the undergraduate level, we originally had recommended for discontinuation. And that was under the assumption in our interpretation and working with Davis College leadership that to meet accreditation requirements, they had to retain the 8 faculty that are assigned to the program. That program has, and it's in the data, has experienced significant enrollment declines over the last several years. And that trend, if you look at how many graduating seniors versus incoming freshmen, is going to continue to decline, at least for the next year or two. Unlike a lot of other programs where, and I'm not saying there are direct replacements for discontinued programs, but there are other opportunities for students to take some of the discontinued majors. Landscape architecture is a little bit unique in the sense that there isn't an obvious second for a lot of students who would be in that program. And that program is also a high quality program that has a lot of outreach within the state that is important. So I think the enrollment that you're referring to is that unit was able to work and come back to us with a plan that said we can still deliver within accreditation standards with reduced resources, meaning some fewer faculty, that made it a different case. That appeal letter also is one of the few that I can think of offhand that also refers to enrollment increases that are going to be needed over the next couple of years. We didn't offer that to many programs because, again, oftentimes there are other alternatives that students could migrate toward. This one was a little bit unique, and with those kind of different scenarios for resource reductions, we thought we've got some runway to be able to allow that program to make a case in the next couple of years to bring together an enrollment increase to reverse that enrollment trend. If that doesn't happen in a couple of years, then we're probably having the same conversation again, which is it'll be evaluated again for enrollment plans and then realizing some of those enrollment increases. I think, and I could be wrong, but I can't think of another program where we explicitly tied an enrollment plan and the need to increase enrollment over a short period of time to an outcome that changed course in the appeal. And that's why in the case of landscape architecture.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not address that in other programs that probably could have? Is it just an accreditation issue? Or why not give the chance to other programs to do the same?
Well, I think the answer is that landscape architecture is somewhat unique for the reasons that I just mentioned. And in many cases, the others were experiencing continued declines. And honestly, given what's in front of us, if we'd have given every program the chance to say, okay, over 2 to 3 years, can you increase enrollment? We would not be making adjustments that we need to make as a university. And in a lot of cases, I think there is the opportunity that if a program does, we've got a 2-year teach out period for some of those discontinued programs, as few as there are. If we see some enrollment trend, if there were changes, we can always add resources back as needed if enrollment growth continues. But, it's simply not, we are not in a position anymore where we can say, we can let all programs have a 2 to 3 year window to turn around enrollment before we then take decisive action. I don't think that's where we are as a university right now. That's certainly not consistent with what we were asked by the Board of Governors to do.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're saying that if
Dan,
there's increased
if you could
enrollment-
yield, please. We have some more people in line. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Kevin Mylands. I am part of the School of Mathematical and Data Sciences here representing Eberly College. My question for so first a clarification. So our intent when we appealed the discontinuation of the graduate programs in math, it was our intent to develop a program, a graduate program, continuing the existing program but add in coverage in the areas of data science and math. So that was the intent of our appeal, and perhaps it wasn't as phrased as clearly as maybe it should have been. So there may have been some confusion as to whether we were appealing or not. But that was certainly the intention, was to try to develop a program to have a transition to take our existing program and add in components of for data science and applied math to reflect the mandate that we received from the administration to adapt our programs to make them more competitive and in line with offerings that the administration would like us to put forward to modernize the university and engage in academic transformation. So we believe that by doing this transition, continuing the existing programs and adding in or emphasizing data science and applied math, that by having this transition, we would be better able to, well, both serve existing needs of students who may want to study pure math as well, but to that this would also have the greatest chance in order to be successful in developing these new programs in data science. So unfortunately, if we were to discontinue the programs in mathematics, there would be a gap where we could not admit graduate students in mathematics, and those students are needed for data science to conduct research. So it would present problems for data scientists to continue to conduct research. Also, the effect on our teaching load would, my understanding is, it would go from 2.2 to 3.3. And just the realities of the job market for data scientists is that it would make WVU not a very competitive place to do data science with that teaching load. So my question for the Office of the Provost is, would you please consider, when you make the recommendations to the Board of Governors on Friday, to let us continue the programs with the understanding we're going to adapt them to meet the mandate of academic transformation.
So thank you for the question. So I think the original intent of the process that we had unfolded in the moment, again, was that the program was not appealed, the discontinuation of the PhD program. Mathematical instruction at the graduate level was appealed and an alternate plan was presented. Through discussions during the appeal and post-appeal, it was determined that through the teach out that we would have the ability to create the program, and we're not sure what the timeline might be, but it could be actually expedited in some way, so that we've got faculty here that can help create a program, and one that was adamantly advocated for by the chair for an applied mathematical sciences and data science program. So we have the ability through the teach out to create the program. We also have through the ability of grant funding to hire postdoctoral students to help with the research that's needed in data sciences, and also with potentially creating a program. So I think there's a number of avenues there that we have to continue the instruction that we need to continue through the teach out, because we do have quite a number of students there that started this year in that program that we need to teach out. Does that answer all of your question?
Well, so I guess I would just like, if we could at least acknowledge that the intent, that our intent was certainly to appeal the discontinuation of the programs. I don't think that you'll find very many people in the school that would actually agree that it's a good idea to discontinue and try to start building a new program from scratch. So yeah, I would just ask that you maybe consider.
What we can do is we can go back and look at the notes, see exactly what happened during the appeal. I'm pretty confident in the way I stated it, as that's how it happened. But what we can do is we can look at that. We can consider an alternative plan before we present to the Board of Governors on Friday.
Okay, thanks. I would very much appreciate that.
Sam.
Hi, Suzanne Gosden Kitchen, Chambers College. I have two questions. One is for Provost Reed and one is for Stephanie and or Tracy. Do you care where I begin? Provost Reed, one of the constituents in my college has asked me to specifically ask how leadership is going to address the devastated morale of the faculty members.
Suzanne, that is not a question I can answer off the top of my head. I mean, I think we have a challenge right now. We're going through a very difficult situation. We have to see this process through. We are doing our very best to support faculty who will be impacted by this. We will do our best to support faculty who remain. But I can't, unfortunately, wave a wand and make all of this go away. We are going through a difficult time, and we know morale is down, is impacted, whatever you want to say. And we will do everything we can to celebrate our good faculty, to provide opportunities to do that. But we are going through a process right now that we're going to have to see through. And I think we have to recognize that there is unhappiness about this process. And for that, we are truly sorry. But we are committed to trying to support everyone that is leaving the institution and everyone who will remain.
Thank you. And my next
Suzanne,
question.
If I could ask you to hold your second question, because we do have people online in here and.
I will do. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. We've got Amy Weislogal online.
Hi, yes, my question is regarding the enrollment targets that have been set for the programs that have submitted appeals. Based on President Gee's earlier comments, WVU has gained market share, but yet enrollment has still declined. So the programs, the budget structurally is unable to support the number of programs that we had. So there's been programs that are being contracted. So is the enrollment growth expected to be by absorbing these students that now basically don't have their preferred program or maybe had intended to pursue those programs and now are seeking other options? And if the overall enrollment of the university continues to decline based on declining, population statewide and so on and so forth, and the demographic cliff, how is that enrollment target defined? Is it absolute numbers? Is it a percentage? Is it some other way based on historical numbers? It seems like we had a historic population of students, so clearly the enrollments will be lower overall. So I'm confused how growth is expected to be obtained. I don't know who should answer that question.
Hi, Amy. My understanding is that we did not give targets and that we asked instead for the units to come back with a plan to increase enrollment. And that we would work with them on that plan.
So there's no number, just a,
Stefania Stanish. Oh,
go ahead.
Stefania Stanisha, Davis College. I have a question in relation to the brief process. So if the chair or director is part of a department that needs to cut faculty, it is clearly a conflict of interest for them to determine the criteria for the faculty that are needed and what skills or expertise are most important. How is taken care of? How can faculty in that unit have a voice in determining needs of the unit? So in several cases, department chairs or directors are faculty.
I'll address a portion and Stephanie can add in any additional information. So primarily, this relates to one variable with the specialized qualifications that we've reached out to the deans. Some of those deans have engaged their chairs. Our responsibility in our office is to, for the oversight of this process, is to ensure that those are as objective and verifiable as possible. So if a unit comes forward and says that our accrediting body requires the teaching of X class by somebody who has Y credential, this is the only person that has that, then what we are doing is confirming that that is the case. So again, the variables that are used with respect to performance, those come from your units and within digital measures. The longevity is another numerical variable. And then the credentials are all things that we are looking at as objectively verifiable.
So there are no more specific criteria that university provided to chairs or directors.
No, what they were asked to do is if there was any specialized credentials that the unit would not be able to operate without, that sort of thing. We're trying to keep the subjective or personality elements out of the process to every extent possible.
Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Haddix from the Davis College. When we first started talking about the appeal process, Lou said, so some decisions are not appealable, and Paul, you indicated that's part of because they don't fall under BOG purview and all those kinds of things. So 3 of the programs in the Davis College in School Design and Community Development, which has been effectively disbanded, fashion, dress, merchandising, design studies, interior architecture, decision was made. It was being called, I guess, a mission-oriented decision to become part of the merger with the CAC or CCA Reed unit. So there's some rationale for that move, and it's unclear to me what that rationale is. And given some of the questions that have come about, some of the exchanges we've had, and we've had quite a few email exchanges back and forth now, it suggests to me that there was a rationale. It was based on an incomplete understanding of the programs that were being asked to move. And I'm just trying to get clarity on what the understanding is. And it's a little sense to me as the program coordinator of one of those that the horse has left the barn without the wagon, and we need to kind of figure out should they have left yet. So that's my question. If you could provide that rationale, please. Thank you.
Hi, Chris. I'll start that, and then I may have my colleague Paul add to that, given his knowledge of creative arts. What I would say to you is that the focus was on creating structures where they made sense, where if there was already a strong design program in creative arts, that bringing additional design programs will create a stronger, cohesive focus on design at the university. I know there are accreditation factors that have been at play in the past, and that we believe that those programs could be successful in the new reconstructed college. I don't know, Paul, is there anything else that you would want to answer?
So since the announcement of the merger, I've had a few conversations with some of our alumni. Chris, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. I had a few conversations with some of our alumni in the College of Creative Arts alumni, and they're actually quite excited about the merger and what it can do to bring the design areas into this new college, and with a justification alongside media and so much of what they work on today as a composer out there it just envelops all facets of media and design and social media and technology that's necessary for these people to get ahead in their jobs today. And so we see this as a great opportunity to bring these units together and really provide a well-rounded, robust experience for our students to get them on the job market in the future. I think we're also at the same time creating some efficiencies. And we hope that we can really bring a body of faculty together that have been across our campus and at times not really working together. And hopefully we can get them to bring that to bear with our students in the classroom and also out there in the research in our communities. We think this is an ample opportunity for us to make some real change. So when I made the announcement to the 2 colleges which I never got the opportunity to do that with the design folks in the Davis College. This was all clearly laid out, and unfortunately, you and your colleagues in the Davis College were not able to hear all of that rationale, and I apologize for that.
Chris, would you go back to the microphone for us, please?
Thank you. That all makes sense to me, Paul, for the units you mentioned, but for our unit.
When you say our unit, you mean
Design
design
studies,
studies.
fashion, dress and merchandising, and interior architecture. The things you mentioned are not what we really do. So we've got the word design in our.
Well,
in
I
our
think
names. I'm not
there's a lot of
designer.
intersection to be had between fashion and the College of Creative Arts, and
Fashion,
certainly
dress, and merchandising. They're three different.
understood.
This is the concern to me. I just want to go out there and have it out there. We don't think you really understand what we're about. And I hope we can have the opportunity to figure that out because.
Well,
it's
let me
kind of
just say,
square
Chris,
peg in
let me
a
just say,
round
I
hole.
have spoken with some of your colleagues in your units, and they're actually excited about this merger.
Mhm.
And maybe we need to have that conversation with everybody in the room, and we'll certainly get that scheduled and
Thank you.
have that.
That's what we-
I know that our
Okay.
deans right now are scheduling a get together to happen later this month, and we'll certainly have ample opportunity to get all thoughts and ideas on the table.
That would be great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Frankie. Leslie Cottrell, School of Medicine. I just wanted to, and it's so good that Suzanne's up here. Suzanne had asked Provost Reed about the morale of faculty, retention, recruitment of faculty and students. Just wanted to put a shameless plug that Faculty Senate has a new committee called Faculty Involvement in Student Recruitment and Retention. So a little bit of that question's on us. As the chair of that committee, and many members who are on the call and in here, feel free to send us your thoughts. That's what we're here for. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Leslie. Suzanne?
Hi, Suzanne Gosden, Kitchen Chambers College. I'm here for my second question. I want to pull up my picture. I had to take pictures of the slides because we didn't have copies of Stephanie's slides. At least I did not. And so I do hope that we can have those posted, particularly the FAQ that was mentioned. The question that I have specifically to Tracy or Stephanie is regarding the option for deans to non-renew non-tenure track folks, of which I am one of those individuals. I've worked here for 28 and a quarter years. April of next year, not 24, but 25, I could retire. I know I look too young to do it, but I could do it. If I make it that far, if I don't get through a RIF. But never in all of these years have I ever been called a contract employee or ever even felt like a contract employee until April of this year when we started using that term in this meeting hall. And so my question about being the contract employee and that deans have the discretion to do other things and it doesn't have to be part of a RIF plan, I'd like someone to explain really more in depth what that means for those of us. Are we going to follow the same timeline of the dates that were there? Are we still going to be part of all these papers that you say are coming out and all the processes and the dates that were outlined on those slides?
Thank you. You do look very young. So if a dean chooses to take the reductions only through the non-renewal of tenure track, service track, et cetera, we could do that on a more expedited timeline. So the dean could do that before the October 16th period of time. And they would have meetings with those particular faculty members to provide them with notification of that non-renewal. But in terms of the severance agreement and all of that, you're still applicable for that. If a person is either subject to reduction in force or a non-renewal, they will still get an email with the severance package, the severance agreement, an opportunity to sign up for a meeting with the Human Resources Department, et cetera. So all of that is still applicable. It's just that we might be able to provide the notifications on a quicker timeline.
Diana's going to take the chair for a moment because I like to be recognized. You can go ahead first.
Thank you. Stefania Stanisha, Davis College. One question, again, in relation to rift process. If someone is rift in, say, October, and someone else gets a position in March 2024, can the rift person be unrift? Or
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand your question. So your question was that if somebody receives a RIF notification and then someone else in the department beyond September 30th, or beyond that notification of RIF, I should say, decides to leave the apartment, can they be unriffed? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, if the person that has been rift can come back to the unit if someone else leaves the unit.
I think it would depend on whether they were going to backfill the position that the person left or not, but more likely than not, probably no. We're trying to provide some finality to this. So again, if you are planning on leaving the unit through retirement or otherwise, it is important to let us know by September 30th, if at all possible.
Yeah, that will make hard time for the faculty that remains in the unit, since they will be left with less faculty.
I understand.
I recognize Frankie. Thank you, Frankie Tatt, College of Applied Human Sciences, and I'm taking the unusual step to say this because I'm a little bit stunned that TAPS and SAPs, et cetera, are not going to be considered in the global reduction plan for each unit. They are. It just said TAPS and SAPs could carry the load of the reduction, and that a RIF plan would not have to be submitted by a dean.
If that's all they're doing, which would be a very, very rare circumstance. But if they're doing if we're looking at, if the reductions, let me say it this way. There's a couple of units that could actually just do their reductions, which are only like 1 or 2 by just non-renewing a TAP or a SAP, which they can do when their contract ends this particular year. But for the vast majority of the units, there will be a full RIF plan. They're going to look at all of the faculty members within that RIF holistically, based on the 3 factors that Tracy outlined earlier.
In follow-up, you just said they could just RIF a TAP or SAP if they needed to.
It's not RIF, it's non-renewal.
I'm sorry, non-renew, but the word just there is a little concerning, like we'll just take care of it. We won't have to go through this
Yeah.
other process. Why are we not including TAPs and other people in that category in a full evaluation of their longevity, their skills, their performance evaluations?
Sorry, and I didn't mean tapped. I didn't mean, if I said just, Frankie, I did not mean it in that way. I apologize.
Each year, some deans make a decision for non-renewal of one of our faculty members. Some of those deans have already determined that that was a decision that they were going to make. And in the case, again, very rare cases where we're talking a small number of 1 or 2 faculty, if that had already been part of their decision-making, and that would be accomplished through non-renewal, there is no reduction in force process. So which reduction in force itself applies only to specific categories. Shortening a multi-year contract or tenure track faculty members. As painful as this is, if that is the decision the dean had already made, there is an advantage to being able to get that information out to everyone else in the faculty as soon as possible. That's part of the expedited. That is something that we could let the affected individuals know that information rather than waiting through October 16th, having the entire unit go through the affirmation process. Again, this is in the case where the dean had already was making a decision for non-renewal.
Seems like we've made our faculty in that category low-hanging fruit to solve this problem.
I don't think that that's, again, we'll have to watch the entirety of all the decisions. That is not what I'm seeing. And again, it's not how the majority of the reductions would be able to be accomplished. if everything would have been able to be accomplished through non-renewal of non-tenure track faculty, that would have been done. And there, we wouldn't have had so much of the discussion in the process that we have. So that's not the intent, and that's not going to be the outcome.
Go ahead.
Ruchi Bhandari from the School of Public Health. This is a simple one. Some of my colleagues want to know the enrollment numbers for fall 2022 and fall 2023. How do they compare? If you could share. And even if you don't have the final numbers, but just the numbers that you have as of now. Thanks.
If you email Evan Witters, he said he will send you those numbers. They're easily accessible, but you may not know how to find them. So we'll make sure you get them.
Thanks.
Okay?
Thanks.
Yes, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Chris Haddix again, Davis College. I know that during the appeals process, this issue of hatch funding, which for some of y'all might not make any sense, but it's money that comes into the Davis College and supports big chunks of the salary for a lot of the faculty that would be proposed to move. And I know there's some question of would that funding stream follow the faculty to a different school. So is there any more clarity on that? Because there's a lot of buzz around what will or what won't go and how those shortfalls might be made up. Thank you.
So Chris, this discussion came up in the appeal hearing, and it's really wasn't relevant for the appeal hearing, but we had the discussion at another time with deans and Dean Donahue, Dean Jackson, Dean Martinelli. And so the issue of hatch funding has been discussed. We know that operational dollars that are funded from hatch can move with those faculty to those units until those projects are expired. Unfortunately, salaries that are funded through hatch will not be able to move to a different college outside the Davis College. So we'll have to figure out how we manage that as we move forward.
Diana Davis, School of Medicine. To clarify, faculty who are not RIFT but are just non-renewed, will they be eligible for the severance package?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Eugenia Pena Jeftohef, Davis College. My question is, you're talking about 3 years of data. What about the faculties that have been here only 1 year or 2 years and they're tenure track? How are you going to evaluate them? They don't have enough data. And seniority is not the only thing we're looking at.
Yes, we're using 3 years worth of data for people who've been here for 3 years. For people who've been less, we're using their available faculty evaluation ratings. Yes, for people who have been here for 3 years or more, we're using the most recent 3 years worth of data. For people who have been here less than 3 years, we're using their available data, whether that's 1 year or 2 years. That is what we have available. Those are the performance ratings that come from the units.
Hi, I'm Kelly Watson, Eberly College, Women's and Gender Studies. I just have one more clarification question about the accessibility of severance packages to SAPs and TAPs and SAPs. So as long as you're notified by the October date as a TAP or SAP, you can access the severance, but not if you're notified later in the year, right? Because TAPs and SAPs can be non-renewed at a different time.
Yeah, just to be clear, our goal is to do all of that this fall so that or by as close to October 16th as we can, because we want to try to find some certainty to the end of this process for our faculty. So, you know, again, all of those folks would be eligible for the severance package. And, you know, if something would carry on beyond that, for this particular year, I think we would also look to see about if we could do some separate packages for those. But again, the intent is to try to resolve this current fall, as opposed to, you know, stringing it out over multiple months.
Thanks.
Suzanne, this might be number 3.
Am I allowed?
You're really only allowed 2, but the fellow behind you might be on number 3 too. So if there's no objection, we'll let these 2 be the last 2 questions. Sound okay? Let them have number 3? Okay.
Thank
All
you
right,
kindly. Suzanne Gosden, Kitchen Chambers College. So absent from the budgetplanning.wvu.edu website for some time now has been FY23 budget data. And that data, those prior slides that I think we had access to, like maybe from March and before, had enrollment data in it, which perhaps we could have used if it was still publicly available to us, but it is in fact not present on our website. So if it has moved, it doesn't make sense that it would have moved from that site when 2021, 2022, and the new 2024 report is there, but 2023 is not. And so if that was an oversight, then it'd be great just to get that back up so we could look at it. I'm looking on it on the website right now. It's still absent. Budgetplanning.wvu.edu FY23 has been missing for some time now. And so getting that, I mean, it's not like the link doesn't work, like it's not there.
You know what? That's not, we need to look into that and resolve that. So I can't speak to that because we don't manage that website, but we'll look into that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
And last but not least.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. Hold on, let me, there we go. So Dan Toski, Eberly College. So one thing that I was concerned about or thinking about, especially when talking about TAPS and SAPs and thinking about folks who don't have 3 years worth of data. I know my first semester here, I was given like the middle ground evaluation just because that was like the default. And so I'm wondering, just from an equity perspective, I know going into the 3 dimensions for people getting reviewed for who's going to get RIFT, and I know we can say, we'll evaluate all data and we won't make these decisions, but people are people and biases come through, whether that is saying, oh, well, this person is not tenure track, or this person, well, they only have 1 evaluation and it's just average. Just wondering what assurances or sort of concrete processes in that review are going to be there to ensure that those aren't going to be skewed towards brand new faculty and or SAPs and TAPs. And then somewhat relatedly, I'm just like, I don't know, is there a rubric? I mean, not to like send out like everybody's results, but like if I get laid off, am I going to know why? Like that's just, I don't know, that's going to be part of the process, but just really, especially thinking about that equity concern.
I suspect it's possible that there's nothing that I could say that would assuage all concerns or fears. I think that's an accurate statement. This is a very heavy, emotionally laden process that our team has taken very seriously, has worked extremely hard to ensure many of those biases that you're talking about don't come into play. Our performance data, our decisions are made every year based on those faculty evaluation ratings. We've spoken before why I think it's very important to have operational criteria in each of your units for faculty evaluation. But those are the data upon which merit raises, promotions, all sorts of decisions are made. And so that is a part of this element. And with respect to everything else, I can say we're just really focusing that we're looking at objective, verifiable data based on what that unit operational needs are, and working hard to ensure other elements don't enter into the process. You may not trust me, really working hard on it though.
Thank you all for your questions. Thank you to the Provost's office for being willing to answer them. We are skipping the next item on our agenda. We had Kayla Fulmer, the new graduate student ombudsperson, who was going to give us an overview, but she needed to leave at 5, so we will reschedule her. And from there, we have curriculum report. Cindy Trickett-Shockey.
I'm here still. I will have a very quick report because the committee is going to be meeting on Thursday. They are presently reviewing 64 courses. They're doing one program review, and we've had 20 courses that have been deactivated at this point, and we're getting that done. So thank you very much.
Questions for Cindy? Thank you, Cindy. Next, we have a report from Mary Beth Angeline, General Education Foundations Committee. Mary Beth has no report. Thank you. I mean, not thank you for not having a report, just thank you for reporting to us. Next is Marina Galvez Peralta, Teaching and Assessment Committee report. She has no report. Next, I understand, unless something shifted, that Leslie Cottrell does not have a report. Committee on Committees. Did I get that message correctly? Okay. Next, we have Eloise. Eloise, Representative State Government, says no report. Stan is shaking his head. Representative to BOG. Stan also has no report. And I might have a temper tantrum if anybody says they have any new business, but is there any new business? There is new business. Yes, Scott.
I don't really, Scott Critchley, utterly. But something that came up with the point that Eugenia raised, and definitely with what Dan raised, I realize the next few months are going to be absolutely insanely painful and horrible, and we have to get through them. But I think there's probably some things that come out of this that will be valuable learning experiences. And one is that the performance rating wasn't really created with this in mind. Like, nobody created that in their department thinking through like a RIF was going to happen. I mean, I guess technically it could potentially, but we didn't like think that through. So maybe, and I'm not like any of us like want more committee work or whatever, but maybe a thing for the provost office to possibly expedite through the year 2024 would be a request for a department review of the evaluation criteria for performance. I know that's a ton of thing, but maybe maybe a thing would be just sort of, does Department X want to review it? That kind of thing. Because I think in this current situation, just like the stress is off the charts, and we want to be as fair as possible. And if some departments like psychology have very complicated ones, and they might be very happy with it. But a lot of departments, design that to do different kinds of things, like help new faculty through and that kind of thing, and they're much more broad. So just like a suggestion that once we get through this, then we might think through lessons, and one might be to sort of open the door for some reviews of the performance criteria. That's all.
Thank you, Scott. If you would please send me just a short email with that, and we can follow up on that. Any new business? Any other new business? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? And a second? All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.